Morning. As Alistair said, I'm going to talk to you today about some things that we're doing at Intel that I am incredibly passionate about, and as others are at Intel as well, and how we're using technology to solve real-world business problems and real-world problems. In this case, we're talking specifically... Oh, sorry. Can you back me up? Yeah, thanks. We're talking about how we can accelerate the research going on around Parkinson's disease. So for Parkinson's disease, for those of you who don't know about it, it's a neurodegenerative disease. It affects 1 million people in the U.S., 5 million people worldwide. There are 1 in 100 people over the age of 60 that are affected by Parkinson's disease. That represents, on a yearly basis, about 60,000 new cases in the U.S. alone. And that number is growing year on year. Probably most concerning is there is no test today to accurately diagnose Parkinson's. It is not uncommon for the disease to have manifested itself in somebody for 10 or even 15 years before the disease gets diagnosed. And so researchers are looking for ways to better diagnose the disease. But in order to diagnose the disease, they've got to understand the progression of the disease better. And so if we look at what's happening in research today, the way they're diagnosing the progression of Parkinson's in patients, because it manifests itself faster in some patients than others. So they need to understand why that's happening. And one of the things they're doing today is they are assessing the disease much the way they did when the disease was first recorded over 100 years ago. They bring a small cohort of patients into a clinical trial. They have them come in once every 6 months, maybe 3 months, perform some dexterity tests, touch your fingers to your nose, touch your forefingers to your thumbs, walk a straight line, much like a sobriety test. And they score the patient on those tests on a scale of 1 to 5, no more granular than that. They take that data, they total it up, they compare it to the last visit's results and determine whether the disease is actually progressing in a patient faster or not. That's it. Very, very subjective and prone to a doctor's, given scoring in a given day. And hopefully it's the same doctor scoring the patient each time. So what can we do to help accelerate that? One of the things we're doing is, the first thing we did is we said, let's figure out how to use technology to solve the problem. We started by outfitting the patients with wearable devices, watches in this case. These devices are generating 300 measurements per minute, roughly a gigabyte of data per day per patient. In a cohort of 10,000 patients, that's roughly the equivalent in one day of the amount of data in the Library of Congress, just to give you a sense for how much data we're able to collect now. We take that data, we take it from the device through the patient's handheld or cell phone and load it up into a cloud-based infrastructure we built. We're able to then ingest the data. It goes through a data broker. We cleanse it. We apply some machine learning algorithms because the accelerometers in some of the devices occasionally emit inaccurate measurements, so we sort of clean those out, load data into Hadoop, and then we're able to run analytics on top of it. At this point in time, we can deliver to the researchers a view of what's happening 24/7, 365 days a year on a minute-by-minute basis. They can see how the patient's disease is progressing. Compare that to this 6 months, once every 6 months, very subjective tests, and the researchers are absolutely thrilled with the new insights that they have to begin to understand the disease. So again, one example of how we're using technology to help solve the problem. In the future, we're going to be able to, once we better understand the progression of the disease, we'll be able to start looking to include other data sets, genomic data, personal health record data, et cetera, to be able to look for correlations between the patients. If it's progressing faster in this patient versus another, what are some of the other factors that might be causing it, and looking for markers, and again, those key correlations that'll help them understand why it's progressing faster in some than others. We can also take the components here and we can make them applicable to other medical research areas, other diseases, and even other non-medical based research areas. So we'll continue to build these capabilities out and apply them in other places as much as we can. So that's my 5 minutes. If you've got more questions, you can stop by the Intel booth. We've got experts there, and I think we have a demo of the application we built there, so you can stop by and ask more questions about how the work we're doing in Parkinson's. Thanks very much.